Hello, Mrs. Kemp here. Welcome Math 7 students. We've got our Algebra unit. This lesson today deals with the algebra vocabulary, the vocab that you will be using while simplifying algebraic expressions. Remember, you can pause the video at any time to copy down things into your foldable. Also, rewind the parts and review the parts more than once if anything is unclear. Also, please ask your teacher if you have any more questions. Here are the first four vocabularies. Again, pause the video, copy these down, and then I will go through and explain each one. A term is a number, a variable, or a number times a variable. Terms are separated by an addition sign or a subtraction sign. These are some examples. 50 is just a number. That's called a term. J, that's just a variable. That's a term. And 8n. This is an example of a number times a variable. So this 8n is considered one term. Okay? In algebraic expressions, you will see expressions where you have many terms together that are added or subtracted. In this case, I just listed 3 separate terms. A coefficient is the numerical factor of a term with a variable. So here's a couple terms, 8n and 1j. I just pulled those down from up above. 8 is called the coefficient. It's the number that's multiplied by the variable. Notice from our earlier example, j was just by itself. If there's a variable and it doesn't have a coefficient, then we put a 1 in front of it because 1 times j doesn't change the value. So the coefficient for the j would be a 1. So in this one we have 8 and 1 are the coefficients. Like terms, they are terms that have the same variable with the same power. Some examples are 8n and 10n. They both have the same variable and it's both to the first power. The coefficients can be different as long as the variable is the same. Over here on the right, we have some things that are not like terms. 2x and 4x squared are not like terms because one of them is an x and the other one is an x squared. They have a different exponent, so they are not like terms. Down here we have a constant. A constant is a term without a variable. It's just a plain number. Some examples given are 50, -24, and 4 squared. If you multiply 4 squared, you get 16. That's just a plain old number. So when you don't have any variables in there, it's called a constant because it stays the same. A constant never changes. Things with variables vary, V-A-R-Y. Vary means that they're changing. So in this, we have a variable, it's changing. Down here for a constant, it stays the same. So a constant is just when you have a plain number. 4 more vocabularies. Again, pause, copy these down, and I'll explain them. Simplest form is an algebraic expression with no like terms and no parentheses. So what that means is you're taking an algebraic expression, something with adding and subtracting, and you're putting together all the like terms and you're putting together all of the constants. That means you're going to add them together to make it into simplest form. Simplifying the expression, that's the verb. That's the process of using properties to combine those like terms and to combine the constants. So it's the process of getting an algebraic expression into the simplest form. Okay, so that's the verb. That's the process of putting those like terms together, simplifying those like terms. In the previous example, we had 8n and 10n. You would put those together by adding the coefficients to get 18n. Okay, so you would add those coefficients. Same thing with combining the constants. You would just add those number parts. Equivalent expressions. Those are equal math sentences. They have the same value regardless of what the variable is. So there's a couple examples here. 8 plus 1 is equal to 7 plus 2. Even though the numbers are different, they have the same value. They are equal. Down here we have an example. 2 times the quantity n plus 5 is the same as 2n plus 10. This is an example of the distributive property as well. They are equivalent math expressions. The distributive property is when you multiply a sum or difference by a term. What that means is you've got a number outside of the parentheses. It gets multiplied by each term inside of the parentheses. Just like when we distribute papers in class, the teacher typically hands out a paper for everybody. The teacher is kind of like this number out front, or this multiplier, and you, all the students, would be each of the terms inside of the parentheses. So what we do is we take this multiplier, this 2 in this case, and multiply it by the n, and we multiply it by the 5. That gives us 2n plus 10. Down here in the bottom example, this -3 is the multiplier, and it gets multiplied by the 6n, and it gets multiplied by this 5. Okay, so when you take -3 times 6n, that gives you -18n, plus, we always change subtraction to add the opposite. -5 times -3 is +15. Always separate your terms with an addition sign. That's been the first few vocabularies to get you started into the algebra unit. We'll cover more vocabulary as we get into solving equations and inequalities when we cover each of those sections. But for now, this is enough to get you started with simplifying algebraic expressions. Again, if you have any questions, please see your teacher. Thanks!